Here we are starting a new beginning series introducing the orcs. The orcs aren't immortal like some of our other races in World of Warcraft, and therefore haven't lived the length of time the elves have, but they have a very eventful history, and this is why I selected them next. For those of you who haven't watched my first series of the Night Elf Starting Zone, this video series will be a commentated lore and history playthrough of the Orc Starting Zone, with a discussion on the orc culture and how they came to Azeroth. There's so much lore and history in World of Warcraft, and it doesn't always come across as you run around. I plan on doing one for every race, and chose Orc second because of their eventful history. To make this a bit more interesting, each character will have a bit of a personality. I'm not usually a role player in World of Warcraft, but I do play Dungeons & Dragons and enjoy making quirky characters. So I think a bit of quirkiness will make our characters and the video much more engaging. The videos are edited, so you won't have to watch me kill 10 boars and pick 20 flowers to finish the quests, unless I'm using that time to talk about the lore, or if there's unique NPC dialogue during the quest progress. I'll just edit out the repeated tasks involved.
The Great Cataclysm has shattered more than just the world. War Chief Thrall, arguably the most powerful living shaman, has left his people behind so that he might stop the cataclysm at its source. Yet, in his absence, the orc champion Garrosh Hellscream has become the Horde's new war chief. Though popular amongst the orcs for his victories against the Lich King, Garrosh's reckless leadership has begun to cause a rift between himself and the other leaders of the Horde. With Durotar's natural resources nearly depleted, Garrosh seeks to take whatever his people need to survive, regardless of who stands in his way. A dangerous new era for the Horde has dawned, and it falls to brave orcs like you to uphold the will of the new war chief and assure the dominance of your people.
So that introduction video threw a handful of information at us, mostly about current events. The Cataclysm was mentioned, along with two leaders, Thrall and Garrosh. Also, a battle between the Lich King was touched upon. I'll give some context to the introduction in a bit, but first let's take a better look at our main character, Lorekanra. Lorekanra will be our orc representative. She's bold and adventurous, but also is a little scared, though she would never let any other orc see her fear. Growing up, Lorekanra's papa told her stories of the deep and wondrous bond between her people and the elements. But elements of this land aren't the same as the old land. Her father was too wary to commune with them. This nervousness was passed on to his daughter. But as Lorekanra curled up in bed one night, pondering on how the elements could be different between their homeworld and this one, a little pebble rolled to her side. She figured it must have been the ground shaking, but in the morning as she went outside, the little pebble wandered out with her. With the courage of the Horde, Lorekanra didn't run from the little elemental, but adopted the pebble and took it as a sign from the elements on Azeroth that she would become a shaman.
Finally, you're of age, Lorekanra, of age to battle in the name of the Horde, to conquer for the glory of the War Chief. Yes.
He looks me up and down.
You will do nicely. No doubt you wish to find a great dragon or demon and strangle it with your bare hands, but perhaps it would be wise to start on something less dangerous. Report to Gornek. He should be able to assign a task better suited to a young shaman. You'll find him seated at the fire behind me.
We'll go talk to our buddy by the fire.
Another one of Kaltunk's recruits, huh? A sorry state of affairs we find ourselves in if this is the best Horde can produce. No matter. By the time we think you're ready to leave the valley, you'll be a proud warrior of the Horde. The first order of business will be to put a little strength in that backbone. I could send you out to the Barrens to hunt Kodo, but Well, in all honesty, you're more useful to us alive than dead. I believe you'll be more used to us slaughtering the boars you'll find in the farms to the north and northeast of here.
I forgot to mention in this video, though I did it in my last series, that I'll be voicing a lot of the quests. If it is a main storyline quest for sure, but usually most of the ones in the beginning area just to get a flavor for the race. If it ends up being like a side quest, I will usually summarize instead of read. And as a word of warning, I'm not a professional voice actor, as many of you might know already. And we have some trolls that we will be talking to, and I'm not very good at accents, but I'm going to try for you guys, so it should be fun. Shamanism is a deep part of the orcs' history, but before we go into the entire history, we need to talk about the orcs as a people. The orcs aren't originally from the planet of Azeroth. They are, in essence, the green-skinned aliens we've all been waiting for. They come from the planet of Draenor, also known as Outland, and this is the place where Lorekanra's father grew up knowing the elements. The problem was that their planet was dying, and to survive they needed to find a different planet with enough resources to support their population. This is the motivation that drove them to come to Azeroth. The orcs are made up of many clans, and these clans have not always been united. Many have their own history and strengths. There are 15 main clans and 11 smaller clans, and because there are so many, it's not realistic to talk about them all right away. Especially because most of the clans are united now, and only consider themselves as apart for heritage purposes. We'll focus on 2 clans in particular.
Strength and honor.
Not bad, Lorekanra, but you'll fight tougher than boars in your career. Nonetheless, you've proven yourself well, and your next trial will be against a considerably more dangerous opponent, so you'll need some extra protection. You're not just another grunt. You seem to be a serious shaman. Good, because that's exactly what we need. Try not to let the word out, since I don't want to cause a panic, but there have been reports of more humans nearby. This is an egregious betrayal of the peace that was negotiated with that miserable Jaina Proudmoore. We can't allow humans here in Durator, and especially not here in the valley. You'll find them to the south. Slay them quickly, before their numbers increase anymore.
For the Horde.
This next guy just states that it's really hot out here, and cactus apples make a delicious treat if they are cooked right. He asks us to go grab some for him, so that we can all cool down.
What do you need?
So the quest to kill the humans actually has some story elements in it. The problem is, if you've never played World of Warcraft before, it wouldn't mean anything. To give the quest some context, the events that happened during the expansion Wrath of the Lich King caused the Horde and Alliance to have to work together towards a main goal. This set up the beginning of a tentative truce, and some people on both sides are hoping for peace between the two sides. Thrall, the Horde's war chief, was working with Jaina Proudmoore, a reputable human archmage, and they had agreed to a treaty establishing territory lines and resources. Unfortunately, not everybody agreed with these two leaders' treaty. When the King of Dragons, Deathwing, burst from the earth, he created massive earthquakes, changing many of the territory's geography. This was called the Cataclysm. This caused opportunists on both sides to seize land and resources that crossed treaty lines. These Northwatch spies are indeed not supposed to be here, but I suspect their commander is not under Jaina's command. And this context nicely ties into our introduction video. So while War Chief Thrall was in charge, Deathwing burst through the earth, causing the Cataclysm, and then after that, Thrall passed off of War Chief leadership to Garrosh Hellscream so that he could deal with the Cataclysm on a deeper level as a shaman. Thrall felt like Garrosh was a good candidate for War Chief because of how much the Horde looked up to him as a champion. Garrosh was the military leader for Thrall and did great things during the campaign in Northrend against the Lich King. As players, we get to see these events between levels 60 and 80 now. Unfortunately, Garrosh has always been a hothead, and working together with large groups of people, especially the Alliance, is not his normal tendency. While he did it a little bit in Northrend, he's not very interested in continuing the partnership. The sophisticated farmer. He's wearing like a suit to do his farm work. His lady friend is standing really close to him. She's probably scared of the elements out there. Not like me. I would never be scared of the elements. Right, Pebble? I mean, they just have a different history. And, I mean, they're made up of the same stuff, right? Oxygen and hydrogen, sulfur.
Loktar.
Or is it magic? Maybe it's magic. It's fine. We're gonna be a good shaman. We'll make friends.
Executed with quickness and discretion. A job well done. I must send you back into the fields again, shaman. You will find large numbers of scorpions northwest of here. Bring me 8 of their tails. The antidote for their sting is actually made from venom extracted from their stingers. We keep large quantities of antidote for scorpion venom on hand to heal young bloods just like you. But I'm sure you won't be needing any of that, will you?
We've collected our apples and are now turning those in to get some apple surprise. I'm sure it's very tasty. Wonder what this meeting's all about. This panda kind of looks out of place. So you might have noticed up to this point there isn't a whole lot of lore in the quests in this area.
Loktar.
Cursed peons! They work hard gathering lumber from the trees of the valley, but they're always taking naps. I need someone to help keep the peons in line. You look like the right orc for the task. Here, you take this blackjack and use it on any lazy peons you find sleeping on the job. Good smack will get them right back to work. Return the blackjack when you're done. Look for them under the trees in the valley. Lousy, slacking peons.
So of the 15 orc clans, we will focus on 2 clans in particular, the Frostwolf clan and Warsong clan. Both of these clans gave us unforgettable war chiefs that played a big part in the story events of World of Warcraft. The third clan that will be mentioned is the Blackrock clan. They also had heroes, but their events played a stronger part in the orcs' early history during the events of the Warcraft games. But I'd like to talk about the orcs before they established clans, from their beginning. If you are interested in the entire history of the planet of Draenor, the orcs' homeworld, then I recommend picking up the World of Warcraft Chronicles Volume 2. So far, they have 3 books in the series, and they come with chronological history of the universe of World of Warcraft, and great illustrations. Otherwise, they'll cover the history of the world of Draenor when one of our characters progresses to Outland. For now, we'll start when the orcs had established a place in that history. Orcs originally had to stay hidden in mountains and caves or underground as they first developed as a race. Great earth giants called Gron, Ogron, and Ogres roamed Draenor, and they were terribly violent, and much bigger than the orcs. Once a war broke out among these giants, and the largest of the giant empires collapsed, the orcs were finally free to explore the land. Looks like this guy over here had a little bit too much land exploring. Shaman, I thought I'd be dying out here with no one to know it. While I'd be hunting the scorpions of the valley, I came across a particularly vicious-looking one. Hurling myself at it, I managed to inflict a massive blow to its claws before it closed around my leg. I wasn't ready for the stinger, though, and it sliced down into my chest, cutting into the flesh and letting my blood. Please, you must kill the scorpion for me. My honor must be upheld. I fought it upon the plateau to the south. So there you have it, folks. That's the best troll voice that I
He's
could
not that
muster.
kind of orc.
What kind of orc do you think he's referring to? Okay, so back on Draenor, the access to plentiful food and water and materials for shelter and a new life caused the population of the orcs to grow exponentially. This overpopulation produced arguing. But instead of becoming a violent race, the orcs decided to create family clans and settle apart from one another so that they could all live in peace. At the point of them separating, though, they hadn't officially settled on clan names. That would come a little bit later. We will seek revenge upon Sarkoth here. That scorpion acid spray is pretty nasty. Pebble doesn't really care, he's just standing in it.
Speak, friend.
Just turned in my quest for the lazy peons. He hopes they have learned their lesson from being lazy, and I hand back the blackjack.
Sug.
The carapace of a scorpion isn't so thick that the strength of a determined warrior will be deterred. Strike strongly and without doubt, and the scorpions should prove easy prey. There is an important lesson that you must take away from fighting scorpions. The smallest or largest of opponents can send you to your doom. In fierce combat, any number of things can prove your downfall. I have no more to teach you, Lorekanra. You've done well, and will watch your progress with interest.
Lokta.
I trust the valley will teach you much, young shaman. I was sent to the valley to guide you, but I have discovered a growing taint here. One of the Burning Blade, a foul, demon-worshipping cult, has made camp here in the Valley of Trials. He skulks in a cave to the north, and his vile familiars have spilled from its mouth to cause havoc. As your first task against the Burning Blade, I bid you defeat these familiars, slay many, and, if you survive, return to me.
With honor.
We'll run back and see if the troll is still alive. My father always said I would never amount to much, and here, lying beneath a tree, as life slips away, I'm afraid it looks like he be right. At least I wish to die knowing that my last enemy in life lays dead. My blow was not enough to kill him, but looking at the damage I inflicted gives me some small measure of pride. That small measure will be all I have to sustain myself if I die. And in that light, the short list of my life's accomplishments fills me with anger. Seeing the deed you've done for me steals my heart. I cannot fall so easily. I must endure. But it remains that I cannot make the trek back to our settlement unassisted. Please, Lorekanra, return and tell Gornek of my situation. Perhaps he can help me. Well, I'm glad that he's decided that he can get help. When Pebble runs after me, it looks like he wants to constantly give me a hug. He's so supportive. There really isn't a whole lot of elementals around here for us to try communing with. Though perhaps we're not ready yet since we're only level 4. But I think Pebble is going to be a very good interpreter. So back in Draenor, one of the family groups that split off to go find their own land settled in an area known as Frostfire Ridge. Its environment was brutal, with volcanic activity and harsh winters. The orcs that traveled here believed in adapting to their environment and fighting for their place in the land. To do this, they befriended the wolves in the area and found themselves excellent hunting partners. And it was this friendship that gave them their name, the Frostwolf clan. We'll go inform Gornek about the injured troll here. He says that he's definitely going to send somebody out to help, and he's impressed that we were able to take down the scorpion ourselves. And after slaying some familiars, it reads,
Through my divination, I see that an item of power, a medallion, hides deep within the Burning Blade coven. Guarded by beasts and black magic, we must have it. For too long, these demon worshippers have defiled our homelands, cleansed the coven of its demonic taint by slaying the fell beasts and their leader. Return with this medallion as proof of your deed. Lorekanra, you are dependable work. Can I count on you for another task? Some time ago I was surveying the cave to the north for minerals and I left my favorite pick behind. When I later returned to retrieve it, I found the cave was filled with vicious beasts. Will you go into that cave, the Burning Blade Coven, and get my pick? I left it in a chamber with waterfalls. My pick has a spell on it so you can see it in the dark, so you won't have to worry about finding it.
To victory.
Just what's guarding it.
At this point, you might have noticed there is a whole lot of back and forth in this beginning area. As I had mentioned, there are 2 clans that we were focusing on. The second family group found a nice fertile place in the area known as Nagrand. While it had plenty of resources and temperate weather, it also was home to the winners of the Giant War, the Ogres. The Orc clan would never know peace, for the Ogres were constantly on their doorstep. Warsong was their clan's name, for the Song of Battle never left their lips. So you guys might have noticed that quest objectives that we have to pick up or interact with in the environment have a glowing outline. This pickaxe had one, the cactus apple quest had glowing outlines, but this easy find quest mechanic was not always in the game. It originally came out in the expansion Cataclysm, which means that you'll find when we go and quest in Outland, nothing that you need to interact with or pick up is actually glowing because it was an expansion that came out before Cataclysm. This pickaxe quest that we just finished is one of the only quests that attempt to explain the glowing outline in game. The guy actually mentioned that he put a spell that made his pickaxe glow so it was easier to find. I just think it's clever that they decided to attempt to explain why there was glowing outlines on quest objectives, even if it was just for this one. But that also means when you get to Outland, the questing experience becomes a lot less obvious because a lot of the quality of life improvements hadn't been implemented in the game quite yet.
Loktar.
We have a quick turn-in for the pickaxe. He is excited that he has it back, and he's hoping that he can convince the peons to mine in a nice cave after they're finished chopping all of the wood down.
May your blades never dull.
Mokra.
Is your task complete, Lorekanra? You retrieved it, well done. Your effort within the Burning Blade Coven are key in rooting out this cult in the Valley of Trials, but I fear they have further aims in our land. We have not seen the end of them. Your trials against the Burning Blade are finished, here in the valley, but I want you to report your findings. Go to the troll village of Senjin and seek out Master Gadrin. Senjin village is east of the valley, then right at the fork. Tell Gadrin of the Burning Blade, and that they have reached the Valley of Trials. Discover from him if they have yet reached Senjin. Go, Lorekanra, and be swift. I fear the evil found in the Burning Blade Coven is but the herald of a larger threat.
Now, before we leave, I just want to take a peek inside this building here. I'm sure Pebble would like to say goodbye to where we first met. He's pretty sentimental. Except it doesn't really look like there are any rooms back here. I guess maybe this isn't where I slept. There's some prisoners. I'm sure I didn't sleep next to prisoners. That would be weird. Well, we're saying goodbye to our home regardless. Though if you look at Pebble's rock style compared to the red earth here, he definitely traveled from somewhere far away to come find me. Okay, we are heading on a journey out. The rest of Durotar. Let's take a moment as we're walking out to also talk about the Burning Blade orcs that we just fought in that cave, or I guess there is really only one. Now, the Burning Blade sounds like a clan name, but it's not really a clan. It's like a collection of unpredictable and chaotic orcs that are very bloodthirsty. They were used in the past to fight in wars, but they were held in check by a bunch of ogres. But in the current time frame that we're in, there is nobody that they're really answering to and nobody to keep them in check, so they just attack everybody. What they really want to do is bring back the glory days of the Horde, or what they deem as the glory days. We'll talk more about that when we get to that point in our history telling. Unfortunately, the quest that we just had in there doesn't give us any of that information and doesn't really tell us why we're interested in hunting them down and who they are. And reflecting on the quests that we just did in our beginning area, they weren't really informative or story-heavy in any way, shape, or form, and it feels like they hardly touched on orcs as a culture either. But I believe the quests in there do serve as a kind of homage to Warcraft 3, which was a real-time strategy in RTS, where you would of course make your orc peons go collect resources like wood and ore, so you could duke it out against the humans. So the quest we just did is like the massive multiplayer online, the MMO version of Blizzard's roots as a company. So here we have arrived at Sen'jin Village, and as you might have guessed, there's a lot of trolls here, which means you get to hear me voice a bunch of trolls. And I'm sorry. It's super cool though. They use a lot of color and cool designs in their building. This guy's pretty cool. He's got a nice mask on. Trolls like voodoo. Well, they love and hate voodoo at the same time. What a nice view of those islands. That's where you start as a troll, by the way. So I think we'll end our session here. Next time we'll get a little bit of tropical questing and more history of the two clans that we mentioned, Warsong and Frostwolf. Before leaving, I almost forgot to mention our timeline. With World of Warcraft, story is usually not in chronological order, so having a timeline that is specifically tailored to the unique events of the orcs' history will really help us keep everything straight. So I gave us a few gimme bubbles, like the beginning of our timeline when elements ruled Draenor, which is the planet that we started on as orcs. And then from there we have the bubble when orcs emerge from their caves, and then split into clans. I also plugged in the Year of the Dark Portal. We haven't really talked about the Dark Portal, but it is a really big turning point in the World of Warcraft history. That's Year 0. And the last bubble that I filled in was the Cataclysm, because we definitely know that already happened and have talked about it. That happens 28 years after the Dark Portal opens. You can see that there are a lot of empty bubbles that we still need to fill in, and there are lots of things to talk about in our upcoming videos. Until then, Lorekanra and Pebble are signing out.